Hello, today we're going to be taking a look at Chapter 1. I briefly want to discuss a little about what these videos are intended to do, what they're for, what we're going to talk about within them. Obviously, this is an online class, so I'm not seeing you face to face. I don't have that classroom time. I don't have the ability to kind of lecture over the material. So again, you're kind of reading the material on your own, but what I do want to do with these videos is highlight a little bit of information, things that kind of jump out to me, things that I think are important. And the reason why that can be helpful for you is if I think it's important, it's likely to end up on a quiz or something of that like. So again, if you're watching these videos every week, again, the weeks where we cover multiple chapters, there'll be multiple videos. Again, if you're watching these videos, it's going to give you a pretty good idea of things that drew my attention of importance towards the book. And those would definitely be things that you want to pay attention to as well. Obviously, we're not in a classroom setting, so I'm dressed a bit casual myself. These videos are kind of a laid-back thing to look at and watch when you have free time. Plus, I'm recording these during the summer, so this is more of my summer attire. So we're going to start here in Chapter 1. And again, Chapter 1 is going all the way back in time to how people ended up in North America. Again, this is an early American history book, but we need to start at the beginning. How did people even end up in the place that we're going to call America? So the first thing the book kind of highlights is what they call Pangaea, right, which is where all 7 of the continents used to be one giant landmass. And then over millions of years, those continents spread out. They shift, they move, and we have individual land masses throughout the globe. Humans are not physically in the North-South America landmass that separates, right? Human life begins in Africa, spreads out from there. All right, so how exactly then did people get to America? What we see is about 2.6 million years ago, we have an ice age. And this ice age creates these huge masses of ice that start from kind of the North Pole and stretch down and cover all the way into places like Ohio. Again, hundreds of miles from the North Pole. But the reason why this is important and how it allows people to get to America is there's kind of some different thoughts on how this occurs, right? One is because this ice kind of freezes up parts of the ocean, it essentially creates a beach of ice. So not exactly a place you'd want to vacation, but a beach of ice stretching all the way from Europe to North America or from Asia to North America. And people are able to use very crude, early interpretations of boats to be able to kind of navigate the ocean. Again, these things aren't going to go very far. They're not necessarily powered by sail, but because they can just kind of follow that ice beach, they can stop when they need to. They can hunt seals and different animals that might exist. They can, melt the ice to have drinking water. It allows them to kind of slowly work their way along this ice beach. The other option, the one that tends to be a little bit more common, is the idea of a land bridge. That the water freezes up to the point that people are able to cross from what would be modern-day Russia into Alaska, and then from Alaska they're going to spread south through Canada, North America, Central America, and eventually South America. So again, we have some different ideas and different ways in which people may have come to America. And again, there's probably some middle ground there. This happened and that happened. I don't think there's necessarily a right or wrong answer when it comes to how people got to North America. What we do find is that once people get to North America, again, they spread out, they develop different cultures, different dialects, and different empires throughout the continents here, right? Your book kind of highlights the Incas, the Aztecs. Again, the Incas are down in South America, the Aztecs are more in Central America. But again, they're creating these incredibly elaborate civilizations as far as building structure, as far as things like astronomy. They're charting the stars as well as any European country at this point in time, right? So again, comparatively speaking, even though these people are worlds apart, they don't even know each other exist, they're looking at the exact same sky and they're studying the exact same stars and they're coming to a lot of the same conclusions. And in many ways, the Aztecs are more accurate in a lot of their studies. So again, you have these kind of growing empires, and your book kind of highlights all the different tribes or peoples and all these different things that exist in North America at this particular time. Now, when exactly do we start seeing Europeans show up? Well, technically, the first Europeans that show up are actually the Vikings, right? So again, you have these Norsemen explorers. They go to places like England, Ireland, then they work their way up to Iceland. Then from Iceland, they work their way over to Greenland. From Greenland, they actually end up on the coast of North America, Newfoundland. They call it Vinland because it had a lot of grapes. So again, vineyards, vines, right? So again, you actually have Europeans getting to America much earlier than what we kind of focus on, right? We're all about the Christopher Columbus in 1492. But again, this is happening sometime around the year 1000. So again, a full 400 years before Columbus ever steps foot on the continent. We do actually have Europeans here. Now, the settlement's never very large. It's not prosperous. It doesn't exist for a long period of time. Most people didn't know about it. Again, it kind of gets lost in the annals of history here. But again, we do start to see Europeans discovering that there is something here. Continuing on then, obviously, we have to see European exploration, right? For Europeans to get to America, that's obviously a large ocean they need to cross. But originally, that wasn't the intent, right? The ships that are being created in Europe are simply to explore Africa. They're simply being created to explore India. And one of the issues you have as Europeans want to trade with these places, they want to get the gold, they want to get the exotic spices. It's really hard to get things from point A to point B. It's overland routes. The price goes up every mile you travel. The things are constantly being stolen, raided, destroyed along the trip. The easier option would be to put it in a ship and sail it from point A to point B. The question is, how do you do that though, right? Africa is this large, foreboding continent. People have troubles getting south of the equator because once you get south of the equator, the winds start to change, right? They can sail down, but there's no guarantee they're going to be able to sail back. And that's a really hard thing to sell. Like, hey, get on my boat. We're going to go somewhere, but we might not make it back. So again, you start to see slowly farther and farther exploration down the African coast. Eventually, the Portuguese create something called the Carnival, which is a ship that does allow them to sail into the wind and against the wind, right? So again, the winds can blow you down, and now you have the ability to harness those exact same winds to get back home. So again, we start to see more African exploration. We eventually get around the southern tip of Africa. We start to explore the eastern side of Africa. Obviously, they're getting access to India. So again, you start to see trade routes being established. And then one of the things we start to discover is, wait a second, if you can get to Asia going that way, what if you went the other way? What if you sailed out into the Atlantic? Again, we don't know North and South America exist. Their assumption is if you sail there, you'll end up in China. You'll end up in Japan. You can get those spices and just sail straight back across the Atlantic Ocean. All right, so that starts to be what people are exploring. Again, a lot of times, like Columbus showed that the Earth was round. That's not true. Everyone knew the Earth was round. I mean, I guess even today, some people don't think the Earth was round, but you get the point, right? Columbus didn't discover the Earth was round. People were well aware the Earth was round before Columbus found the continents over here. But Columbus is willing to try. So again, you have things like Columbus and his 3 ships sailing out. Now again, they're expecting to find Asia, which is why they refer to the people they found as Indians. They thought they were in India at the time. Now obviously that's not the case, but that moniker has obviously stuck over time. And what you find is that once Columbus discovers that he's found a completely new continent, it's really kind of interesting that trade that goes on, right? Because there are some things that exist in the New World, all right, or the newly discovered world as far as Europeans are concerned. And there's some things that exist in the old world, right? So again, people that lived in the North and South American continents never saw something like a horse before. Right? But people that lived in Europe never saw anything like, your book mentions, an iguana. Right? Again, imagine how terrifying the first time you saw an iguana was, right? It's some kind of weird mini dragon of sorts. So again, you start to have this exchange of goods that are found in one continent, and now they're found in the other. The potato is in North America. Corn is in North America. Again, those things don't exist in Europe, but they're going to completely revolutionize how Europe looks into the future. And we call this the Columbian Exchange, after Christopher Columbus, right? So again, we establish this trade, and obviously it's fairly one-sided trade, right? People are being enslaved here in North and South America. The Spaniards are specifically looking for gold and all these different kinds of things. But when they come, they bring with them the technology. They bring with them new foods and animals. But of course, they also bring with them disease. And that's certainly something that's highlighted here in Chapter 1. As disease runs rampant in North and South America, and again, wipes out huge portions. As many as 90% of Native Americans are going to perish in places that Columbus lands, again, through starvation, slavery, but specifically disease is really going to take a toll. Now, we mentioned that there are multiple countries exploring at this time, and one of the things the book kind of touches on is the Treaty of Tordesillas, which is a division of the world between Spain and Portugal. So at the time, both of these countries are Catholic, and they're kind of at each other's throats about who should be in charge of this and that, and where do you own and where do I own. So the Pope sits down, gets out a map of the world, or the world as they know it at that time, and literally just draws a line right down the middle. Spain, you get this part. Portugal, you get that part. And again, it's a division of the world. Technically, none of the other countries countries are allowed to have any of those other parts, but they're going to ignore that and go ahead and explore anyways, as we obviously know. All right, any other major highlights here? Yes, we have the idea of these empires that here, right? We talked about the Aztecs, we talked about the Incas. Again, chapter 1 is going to go into how they're found, how they're conquered, how they end up being destroyed. And again, a lot of that is through the use of European technology, obviously having things like guns, and a lot of it's through disease. Obviously, their ability, Europeans, to withstand the diseases they bring. The natives don't have those abilities to withstand those diseases. And again, huge portions of those populations are wiped out. We talked about things like the conquistadors, which is the people from Spain that are going here to conquer these new lands. And again, they usually mention they were going after 3 things. And this is the order that they would say things in. God, glory, and then gold, right? They're there to spread Christianity. They're there to make a name for themselves. And sure, if they find some gold, that would just be icing on the cake. I personally disagree that that's probably the order. I would imagine it was probably more gold, glory than God. Like, if you can teach them a little bit about Jesus, awesome. But let's be honest, they're going here to get rich. They're going there to become famous. They're going there, to kind of have their names written down in history. As Spain kind of spreads out throughout the Caribbean area, again, Central America, South America, we see the first permanent settlement here in America, which is actually St. Augustine, Florida. It's actually founded a good 40 years before the English are going to set up their first colony of Jamestown, right? So again, the Spanish are here first, and that's the longest permanently inhabited settlement that we see here in America. All right, so again, that is our look at chapter 1. Again, these are some of the things that I thought were important. And again, we'll see a video like this for each of the chapters going forward. Make sure that you are always taking your quizzes for the week and writing your discussions on Thursday and making your responses by Sunday. Thank you for watching.